A 5-member flight crew arrived in their T-38 jets Sunday afternoon, a little bit after 3 o'clock, and they'll be staying here. They stay here at Kennedy Space Center in the crew quarters for the practice countdown, and they will be leaving in the T-38s later on today and go back to Houston for final mission preparations. As soon as the flight crew got out of their T-38s, they did make a brief press statement, and we'll be hearing some of those comments here shortly. Mission Specialist Robert Springer is getting out of the cockpit of the T-38, and astronaut Mike McCulley was in his back seat. He is the weather interface for the mission management team.
Thank you. You probably noticed we all had to take off our jackets when we got out of the airplanes. It's about 30 degrees in Houston right now, so it's a pleasure being down here where it's nice and sunny today. I'd like to introduce my crew, my pilot, John Blaha, my mission specialist, Jim Buchli, Jim Bagian, and Bob Springer. I need to express our appreciation to everybody here at the Kennedy Space Center, as well as the Johnson Space Center and Marshall Space Flight Center, and the people out of Rocketdyne out in California who are doing heroic work and trying to get the turbo pumps built and replaced so we can get off sometime in the middle of March. We know how hard everybody's been working and how much work there is to do, and we certainly appreciate all the work that is being done. Appreciate y'all coming out today, and we're going to go enjoy the sunshine. Thank you.
One of the things the flight crew does while they're here at Kennedy Space Center is practices getting in and out of and driving around in the M113 tracked vehicles while they're in their partial pressure suits. And that was performed shortly after they arrived here on Sunday. They want to practice moving around and doing the kinds of operations that would occur if they ever had to use one of these vehicles in the case of an emergency.
DPF 1108 to 1112.
Two green and white stripe boxes are ELSAs, and they will not be here.
Members of the KSC training team instruct the flight crew members on the operation of the various types of equipment, including the slide wire basket system at the pad. There have been quite a few upgrades to the escape system at the launch pad since the 51L accident. We have added 2 additional baskets now, so there's a total of 7 slide wire baskets at the launch pad. We've also added a number of different sensors, including fire detectors and temperature sensors in various areas of the service structure.
You don't have to bother with it anyway, do you?
No. Yeah, that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah, you don't need,
The idea is this is the safety. So this basket goes before you get out there.
Right.
Plates covered so you don't mind it falling on the floor.
The 451 out, it's never,
Right.
it was always, that's right. And there were no closeouts in there either. There was a net though.
There's netting.
There was a net.
Approximately 90% oxygen when you're using it. And you can go ahead and put it on. You'll find that it's not really that easy to pull on, but just go ahead and pull it down and
Under your chin.
Astronauts are practicing putting on some gear that would allow them some fresh air for a number of minutes if they had to make a quick escape from the launch pad during the actual launch.
Pull down the seat elastic, that way it won't bounce on your head.
Look up here in this corner here is another one of the UV detectors that's looking down across the primary seat.
If the heat detector, two of them set to 125 degrees and rising.
Cam light up there, ball power, we have the light area, leg stress, wrist stress, secure your arms and legs. There you go. Flashlight.
Pretty simple to operate, but there are some pinch points. It has to come up straight.
Okay. About all right to cut it. On the basket itself, anybody want to crawl in? Sure. Okay.
If there was an emergency at the pad, once the astronauts do get down to this area, they would either have two options. They could either go into the bunker located nearby or get into the M113 tracked vehicle and just leave the launch pad area altogether. It's up to them as far as what their call would be on at that particular time.
All right, stand clear.
About the couple days you spent here now.
The weather? It's about 26 degrees back in Houston right now, so this is nice right here. No, really, it's nice for us to come down and talk to the people here at the Kennedy Space Center. We don't get enough time to do that as much as we'd like to do that. These people work very hard getting our vehicle ready to fly. They're a super group of people. And we really enjoy coming down and talking to them. I wish we had more chance to do that. The last couple days have been just outstanding. We've gone through over emergency egress training. We'll do some more of that tomorrow. A lot of briefings and so forth on the status of the vehicle. And these people are really professionals, and it's enjoyable to come down here and talk to them. Well, we originally we were named to fly the same day as Dick Scobie and the Challenger crew was named. Both of our crews were named the same time, same day. And that was about 4 years ago. In fact, 4 years ago this month. So most of the crew, we've had a couple of changes in the crew, but most of the crew has been training for about 4 years at one degree, one level or another of training. Of course, a year ago, we were named to fly this specific mission. So we've been training in earnest to deploy this teacher satellite on Discovery here on STS-29 for about 12 months.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
good luck now.
Thanks.
What do you think? Those things.
Like inside, like no wind. Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand why they can't put a flag on like
Now, going to the flight crew for breakfast. This is Mission Specialist James Bagian, Mission Specialist James Buckley, and there's Commander Michael Coates, and his pilot John Blaha, and the Mission Specialist Robert Springer. The flight crew can pretty much eat whatever they'd like to for breakfast on the actual day of launch or for days of tests like this. Commander Coates will be making his second trip into space for this mission, and Mission Specialist James Buckley will be making his third trip, and the other members of the flight crew will be making their first trip on Discovery's 8th flight into space next month. The sun's just beginning to come up here at Kennedy Space Center, and the launch team is continuing to perform their checkout activities and continuing to perform their procedures for this terminal countdown demonstration test today. Flight crew was awakened at about 5:55 a.m. this morning, and on launch day or during the breakfast, the traditional cake will be on the table, and it will be decorated with the flight crew patch for the STS-29 mission. The patch was designed to capture and represent the energy and dynamic nature of this nation's space program as America continues to look to the future. The colors of the United States flag are represented in the patch's basic red, white, and blue background. In the border, the 7 stars between the STS-29 crew names are a tribute to the crew of the Challenger. At T-minus 3 hours and holding, this is shuttle control. Inertial upper stage were loaded into Discovery's payload bay. The launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery is scheduled for mid-March, and the official launch date will be set at the Flight Readiness Review, which is scheduled to occur here at Kennedy Space Center on March 2nd and 3rd. This is shuttle control. We're at T-minus 3 hours and holding, and we've gone to the flight crew suit-up activities going on in the operations and checkout building. During launch and entry, the crew members will be wearing the crew altitude protection system, which consists of a helmet, communications cap, pressure garment, anti-exposure, anti-gravity suit, and gloves and boots. And we see Commander Michael Coates putting on his boots here for the practice countdown test. And going now to pilot John Blaha. And Mission Specialist Robert Springer also getting his boots on. Across the room, we've got Mission Specialist Jim Bagian, and Mission Specialist James Buckley. Takes the flight crew a little bit longer to suit up into the new pressure suits, and we are still establishing timelines and very much interested in how long it takes for the flight crew to get into the suits and be ready to proceed to the launch pad. Currently, the flight crew is scheduled to depart for the pad at about 7:45, and the normal weather briefing that it usually occurs right before the flight crew gets into their flight suits was postponed today because of bad weather in Houston. There's reports there is some icing rain, and that a lot of the workers were not able to make it into work today because of those conditions. Meanwhile, at the launch pad, the closeout crew is continuing to prepare Discovery's crew cabin for the flight crew's entry. And if this was an actual launch day, the external tank would be already loaded with its flight load of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen propellant. Meanwhile, during the test, the workers are continuing the removal operations for the high-pressure oxidizer turbo pumps on Discovery's main engines. And the first two pumps have been removed from the Shuttle Discovery, and activities underway to reposition the orbiter's body flap and the number 3 main engine so the third pump can be removed. The new pumps will be coming in next week and installed on the Shuttle Discovery, and all the associated testing is scheduled to be completed prior to the end of the month. At T-minus 3 hours and holding, this is Shuttle Control. And we're still continuing to monitor. The orbiter systems engineers are monitoring the status of the vehicle from their consoles here in firing room 1. And we're on track for a simulated T0 at 11 a.m. There are many similarities between this morning's test and the final hours of an actual launch countdown. Some of the major activities are not performed. The external tank is not filled for this test, and the rotating service structure at the pad is not pulled away from the vehicle. And of course, the most obvious difference between this test and launch day is that the engines are not actually ignited. This countdown today will proceed until approximately the T-minus 5-second point, when the ground launch sequencer will terminate the count. This is Shuttle Launch Control. The astronauts are departing the operations and checkout building now, going to the launch pad. Discovery's 5-member flight crew will be boarding the Space Shuttle Discovery and sitting in their seats and performing voice checks with test conductors here in the firing room, and also simulating various activities that occur on launch day. It takes about 20 minutes for the astronaut van to arrive at launch pad 39B, and they'll be proceeding up to the 195-foot level of the 6th service structure. That's the level where the orbiter access arm is and where the flight crew can enter into the cockpit. And the astronaut van is now departing from the crew quarters at the operations and checkout building on their way to the launch pad. They are being escorted by KSC security. All countdown activities are on schedule this morning at T-minus 2 hours, 53 minutes, and counting. This is Shuttle Launch Control. This is Shuttle Control at T-minus 2 hours, 45 minutes and counting. We're now watching the astronaut van going through the Launch Complex 39 area. And they're just now passing the Launch Control Center. In the Mission Control Room in Houston, there is a flight director on duty and several others in the Mission Operations Control Room. However, many of the employees are not able to get to work because of the weather conditions in Houston today. Some of the activities that may not be performed would be the calculations of the upper level winds, and we know that that will not be performed today because not everyone is there to support that activity. And the orbiter's computer update may not be performed from the Johnson Space Center, but that can be performed through the Merritt Island Launch Area station there. The flight crew is stopped momentarily to let out a few members of the management team so they can come into the Launch Control Center here and monitor the countdown for the remainder of the test. And they This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 2 hours, 38 minutes, 23 seconds counting. The astronaut van has arrived at Launch Pad 39B. Will be making their way up to the 195-foot level of the pad structure. And here's Mission Specialist Jim Bagian, Mission Specialist Robert Springer, and Mission Specialist Jim Buchli. And they're followed by pilot John Blaha and Command Michael Coates. Flight crew now in the elevator at the base of the launch pad, and will be making their way up to the 195-foot level of the fixed service structure. This is the point where the orbiter access arm is. There are no violations of the launch commit criteria at this time, and that we do have a go for the flight crew's entry into Discovery's crew cabin this morning. Flight crew now walking across the orbiter access arm and going in toward the white room. Commander Michael Coates standing by there for assistance and getting in suited up for the white room. He will be performing voice checks with test conductors here in the Launch Control Center. Pilot John Blaha is a colonel in the United States Air Force and was born in San Antonio, Texas. He will be making his first trip into space next month. Blaha became an astronaut in 1980 and has served as a member of the Space Shuttle Ascent and Entry Development and Verification teams. He has also served as Capcom for 7 shuttle flights and as an astronaut representative at Orbiter Management Reviews. He has engineering degrees from the United States Air Force Academy and Purdue University. This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 2 hours, 8 minutes, 17 seconds and counting, and pilot John Blaha just entered the orbiter's crew cabin. Mission specialist Jim Buchli is now going to be assisted to get ready to get into the crew cabin. Became a NASA astronaut in 1979. This will be his 3rd space shuttle mission. His first flight was STS-29, launched January 24, 1985. That was the first dedicated Department of Defense mission. His second mission was 61A, which was launched October 30th, 1985. That was the West German D-1 Space Lab mission. Buchli attended the United States Naval Academy and served in various Marine fighter attack squadrons. He has logged 3,500 hours flying time, 3,300 in-jet aircraft. Bagian was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and became an astronaut in 1981. This will be his first shuttle mission. He participated in the planning and provision of emergency medical and rescue support for the first 6 shuttle flights. He has been responsible for the development of the pressure suit and various other crew survival equipment to be used on shuttle missions. Bagian received a doctorate in medicine from the Thomas Jefferson University and also holds a bachelor's degree in engineering. He has a private pilot's license and has logged over 1,000 hours of flying time in propeller and jet aircraft, helicopters, and gliders.
TVFS, OTC. Go ahead, OTC. Yeah, can you go channel 232 with the NTD for the G9?
43 seconds and counting. Mission Specialist Robert Springer is now being assisted in the White Room and putting on the various pieces of crew equipment that he will wear on launch day. And was born in St. Louis, Missouri, but considers Ashland, Ohio his hometown. Mission STS-29 will be Springer's first trip aboard the shuttle. He graduated from the United States Naval Academy and the Postgraduate School. He has logged more than 3,500 hours of flying time, including 3,000 hours in jet aircraft. Springer became an astronaut in 1981, and his assignments include supporting the concept development studies for the Space Operations Center, coordinating the various aspects of final development of the remote manipulator system, or the robot arm, for operational use. He has also served as Capcom for about 7 flights that they would normally perform on launch day. If this was a real launch day, there'd be a lot of activity going on right now and a lot of
Copy. And on 453, step 879 is not performed. Both substeps of that. Copy. OTC, GLS 212. Go GLS. Yes, sir. GLS initialization is complete. Okay, copy. Can you verify step 904? Yes, sir, we can. Okay, copy that. OTC, OBCC.